Today we're going to do a walkthrough of using the NCE Power Cab with the Model Train Technology LED light controller. We have a couple of different models. This one is no keypad, so programming is done through the hand controller. And there are two ways to do it. You can use function keys, which we'll use, and you can also write directly to the CVs. And there's a map of the CVs here, and it shows you what the function is and what the range of the CV is, what that port number is, just for reference. And then down at the bottom here are the different modes that you can set a port to. So for example, on port 1, which is this one right here, if we want the animation mode to be flicker or blink, let's say, which is 3, then into CV144, we're going to put the value of 3. Now, there's certain, we built this originally first for lighting passenger cars, and then our microboard for lighting N-scale buildings, and then we expanded into this. And almost all of the time we were using Digitrax. So now it's NMRA DCC compliant, but there are some idiosyncrasies between Digitrax and NCE. One of them is in the Digitrax system, and I have that here just for reference. We use this on the bench, is on these digits, which are controlled by these knobs. I'm going to turn it all the way to the right, and the highest value you can get on speed or any setting is 99. Well, in the DCC realm, there are 128 settings, 0 from 127, and you can't get that on a 2-digit display. So what Digitrax does is divides it out. So each time you turn a click, it's actually 1.27, and then that adds up to 100% or 99% is actually 128. And we do the calculation. Well, for better or for worse, the NCE system goes to 126, all right? So we're going to have to figure out, and the user has to know which system they have. Now, when you boot up the NCE controller, it will come up in the forward mode for the speed control. To do this, to program this device, the very first thing you do is change the direction to reverse. And so what that'll do is the system knows when it gets a value from the speed dial, it knows it's working with a system that uses 128 steps instead of 99 steps. All right, so let's go to work here. I'm going to turn the unit on, and this was already programmed. Let's see, I'm going to just push the headlight button. And I have already set this to Loco 16. It comes at Loco 3, but it's set to Loco 16 now, and I've dialed it in. I'll show you that in just a second. But once you've selected this, whether it's 3 or 16 or whatever address, long or short address, all you do is push the headlight button, and that'll turn it on. Now, one of the things you have to know is that F5 is the animation mode. So animation has to be off. Well, if I push F5 now, you can see F5 is on the display and animation is on. So the first 6 digits, you can tell whether they're on. But if I push F7, you can't tell whether it's on. So in my configuration of my hand controller, I set this function key, it's an option in the controller, to expand the function keys. And so now it shows me the 2 ranges of function keys, and I know that function key 7 is on. So now you can't turn off function 7 by hitting 7 right now. It doesn't work. It sort of locks the display. So I have to go back out of the display, hit 7, expand it a bit, and now I can see that it's disappeared. So this is one of the characteristics that I point out at the beginning here, because when you're programming this, there are different combination of function keys that are used in combination with each other and to make certain things happen, whether to set or adjust the setting. And if another function key is active on, that combination of function 1 and function 3, for example, won't operate. The controller needs to have only the function keys that are set up for it. And so this is the way you can double check that there are no other function keys present. Okay, so the controller comes with mode setting equal to 1, and 1 means always on. So there are two ways now. I have the switch in the run mode. I just got it plugged in here, and I've got our test band. So F0 with no animation on, so F5 is off, turns the lights on and off. So that's a good first test. F8, which we can't see, but we know it'll work, sets it to alternate flashing. And that's just a good way to test everything's working before we go into animation mode. Now, as I said, all of these ports are set to always on, which is 1 is the value of the mode. So if I put it into animation mode, which is F5, they're all just going to go on. Very simple. All right, so let's make our first change. Oh, I said I was going to change the local address. The way you do that is you, with everything off, you press the horn button for about a second, and the lights will flash alternately. What this system is now in switch mode. So we go down here to select accessory, and you can see now at the top it says accessory number, and I put in the number 16 before. If I wanted to change this to 17, I type in switch 17 and hit enter, and then it chooses on or off or thrown or closed, and it doesn't matter for this purpose. You could just press 1, and now this controller is set to loco address 17, and you'll notice I still have loco 16 in here, so if I press the headlight button, nothing will happen. So what I have to do is I have to select loco, enter loco number, so I made it 17, right? Hit enter. Okay, so now loco 17 is in the top screen here, and if I push the headlight button, the lights will go on. F8 is alternate flashing, and F5 is animation mode. All right, so let's change it up. First thing we're going to do is make pin 1 blink. All right, now don't have to touch this box. It can be out in the layout, and all you have to do is have the connection wires to DCC. This is designed not to take power from DCC, only the signal. It's kind of like a booster configuration in a way, and the power that powers the LEDs is a separate power supply. In that way, you can have your hand controller running the trains and turning on and off lights or configuring it without touching the box and without taking current away from your engines via the DCC line. It's only the signal. Okay, so let's configure port 1. The way to do that is function 1, so let's make sure everything is off, and we'll press function 1, and now I'm going to move the speed dial to 1. Now you'll notice that it's in the forward direction. What I'm going to do here to illustrate this, I'm going to go up to pin 16. 16 should be this pin, and as you can see, it's a few steps off because we have it in the forward direction, all right? So what I'm going to do is change direction and adjust the speed a little bit, and now 16 is pin 16, and pin 1 is pin 1, all right? To change the mode, to change the animation mode, with function 1 still on, you press function 3, and now we're going to use the speed dial to select 1 through 18. And as I mentioned earlier, 3 is the mode for blink. Now to save this, we press the horn whistle once, and the pin blinks, and that tells us it was a correct save. Now we turn this off, and we go into animation mode. It's still off. It's not doing it, because when you write CVs, we have to refresh the memory of the device, and the way to do that is to press 4, 5, 6, and then press the horn whistle once. And now you can see that because we had 5 on, it's in animation mode. Could get rid of 5, 4, and 6, and the pin is blinking. All right, so now if we press F5, so we've taken 4 and 6 out, we just have F5 animation on. If we turn it off, all the animation goes off, all the animation goes on. And you'll notice that I did not do anything with CVs. We'll do that next. We'll change another pin on here using the CV write mode right from the controller without changing any switches. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is program these two. Actually, you know what we're going to do? We're going to program these two to alternate flash. And I'll show you something. Alternate flash is mode equal to 8. And so we've got the system in animation mode. The first thing we have to do is turn that off. And really it's important to just make sure that no other function keys are on, all right? Because we're going to use a combination of function keys, all right? We'll go back to F1, which is to select a pin, and it won't immediately light up even though it says 3 in here, because we have to move it one notch up or down, which is going to send the speed signal to the device. Right now it hasn't gotten a speed signal, so as soon as we do that, all right, you'll see that it's tracking along the pins. All right, so we'll go back down to 1, and instead of having it blink, we want it to alternate flash. So we set it into, so we got the pin selected. Once you do that, you hit F3. Now that switches the speed dial into mode selection. You notice the light's not moving, and we'll go and dial in 8, and 8 is alternate flashing from our chart. You can see that across here, and oops, what happened here? Oh, Velcro. Okay, so it's an 8, and if you remember, we pressed the horn whistle once, which is the same as F2. The reason I use horn whistle is that on the NCE system, this is a momentary signal. In other words, it'll just signal, you push it once, it sends the signal and stops. If you select F2, the horn stays on, and we don't want that. That'll confuse things. So we press horn whistle once, and the light blinks and goes out, and that tells us that it's programmed correctly. All right, now here's an interesting kind of idiosyncrasy. Now, all we did was press F2 to save that, or the horn whistle to save that. Now, what I'm going to do is get out of mode selection mode. So I turned F3 off. Now, with the 1 there, we're in pin select mode. But you notice the number over on the left-hand side is 8. And so it's not pin 1 anymore, it's pin 8. And if we start to move this slightly, you'll notice the first light to go off is way over here. That's only because we had 8 selected as the mode. But once you only have 1 selected here, we can go back and select pin 2, okay? Switch into mode selection mode, which is 3. Now we're going to use the speed dial to dial up to 8. Press horn whistle to save. And now that's blinked and gone off. So now we're going to turn the mode select off and the pin select off. And the speed doesn't matter because we don't have anything going on. Just set it to 0. And now I'm going to press F5, which will put the whole device into animation mode. And you can see that the 2 that we set are now alternate flashing, and the rest are 1s or steady state. Okay? So that's the way you set up and configure pins. The next thing that we're going to do is configure pin 3 to be a Mars light, and what that does is it fades up and fades down, and it flashes at the top of the fade up. And interestingly enough, the NCE controller, you can program and send CVs. It's kind of like an ops mode for Digitrax. And what we're going to do is we're going to press the program button here down at the bottom left. Oops, let me get that into the view. Program. And what happens on the screen, it goes, let me see if I can back out just a little bit here. There we go. All right. So it says program on the main. Now, if you keep pressing program, you're going to go through all sorts of other things. I only pressed it once, and it says program on the main. Well, I'm hooked up to the main right now. I want to send a program or a CV to one of these, this pin exactly. So I'm just going to hit enter. Now what it says is program loco 17. Remember we changed this to address 17, so we just press enter. That's correct. And now I've got a bunch of choices here. I don't want to change the address. We're going to use CV programming, all right? So press 2. And the first thing it asks us is, what's the CV number that you want to program? All right, so I'm going to turn this upside down so the Velcro doesn't grab this. So what I want to do is I want pin 3 to be Mars. So I'm going to look at the chart. I'm going to go to animation mode and go across to pin 3 and down, and that tells me that it's CV 146. All right, so that's the CV number. And then if I go across to this chart and I go to, it's actually called beacon, and that's a number 4 is the mode that we want to set. So we want to set CV 146 to 4. All right, so we had it selected, CV program number 146. Okay, Press enter. Now it says, what value do you want? We want 4. And that's all there is to it, except nothing happened. And the reason nothing happened is because we wrote directly to the memory on the chip. But the way the controller works, it loads all of that into memory and works with it to do the animation. So we need to figure out how to kind of reload those variables. Well, you can turn the power off, but if you have this out in the layout somewhere, that's kind of inconvenient. So we're going to get out of this. We're going to get clear. Let's see, go to here. Whoops. Let's get, forget how to get out of this. Okay, here we go. I can just cycle through this, and whoops, I went too far, and I'm sure I have to remember what the mode is to get out of it. All right, so we're back to the main screen here, and I'm going to turn animation off for a second. All right, so you can see that animation on. So we're on the main screen, Loco 17. All right, so what we're going to do is put 4, 5, and 6 into the display and hit essentially F2 or horn whistle once. And everything flashes. And now we turn 4 and 6 off and just leave animation on, and watch this pin. It's now doing the beacon. Okay? So we didn't touch any of the wires or anything else. And so let's do that once more. We'll make pin, pick pin 16 and turn it into arc welding. Okay? So we're going to get into, and you can leave the animation on, it's not going to make any difference. So we go program on the main, yes. Loco 17, yes. Now I need to look up at the chart again. Animation mode for pin 16 is 159, okay? So I'm going to take, I'm going to program CV 159 and press enter. Enter the value. All right, so the arc welding is 13. So I want to put a 13 into that spot and hit enter. And let's see if I can get, if I select Loco, let me see if I can just by shift, no, there, no, setup, clear. I guess I have to go through the, oh, just press it once. Okay, there we go. All right, so now we have 5 going, but this is not doing our arc welding. So what we do is we add 4 and 6 again, flash the memory, and now watch this. It'll blink, and it's now doing its animation mode as arc welding. Okay, so that's the way you can program the variables, and that includes if you want to change the timing on blinking and fading, how fast, you're writing into these memory locations different values. So in this case, on time on or time off, for fade, let's say, and you wanted to do that with pin 1. Okay, CV 160, we found that pretty easily. Now you can press a value from 0 to 255. And what you might have to do is experiment with this, because there's no way to dial up and dial down. Pick a number like 100 or pick a number like 50. Don't forget to, so we'll just do that. We won't set it completely up, but I'll just show you programming the time on for the variable 1. And we go to program on the main, enter 2 for CV, and the value of the blinking for, let's do pin 4 so we don't mess up what we got going here, 163. All right, so I type 163 and enter. And now I can produce, I can enter a value from 0 to 255. So let's do 100. And you put the 100 in there, and that's it. And now that value of 163 is set to 100. Now, as with all DCC systems, there is a very strange way that you read variables back. We're sending a digital signal to the device for all of the things we've done so far. Well, 25 years ago, it was a little bit different, and the way a reading of a CV works, there's a couple of different ways, but I'll give you one version of it, is we put this into, have to slide this back in because the signal is going to short out the power. And so we have to move this into a separate mode so that the DCC system says, I want to read CV25. What's the value in CV25? So it writes to the device and it says, CV25, are you a 1? And no response. Are you a 2? No response. Are you a 3? No. And all the way up to whatever the value is. Let's say it's also 25. And when it gets to 25, the system does a DCC acknowledge and does a little bit of a 6 millisecond, 60 milliamp short on the circuit. And your DCC controller, in this case the hand controller, detects that as a yes. And therefore, and then it calculates what the value is. All of that's quite messy, but that's the only way you can read CVs, and that's the only reason you would really need to slide the switch. I think for all of the things that we've talked about, it's simply better to just program in, set a value for 100 or 2 or whatever it is, refresh the device, 4, 5, 6, press refresh, and then see if that works for you. So that's the best way, and that's the basics of programming. We have all the function keys off. I'll just wrap up with this. Everything's off, and now we can press the headlight button. Of course, everything will go on. We're in instant mode. If we press F8, we have alternate flashing, and if we press F7 and then press the headlight, we get the step function. All right, so this is a race and chase, so you can just play with that a little bit just to see how that works. And it's a good way. I use this for testing that all the LEDs in my building are working. Turning them all on, certainly one way, but by doing it individually, I know that each individual circuit is set up and I know that they're separated from each other. All right, so if you have any questions, give me an email. And keep the chart handy, all right? So just one last thing on the chart. So we have the light level, so you can set the light level. When you refresh it, it will, if you set a value above 99, the system will check that and only allow a lower value. So it won't let you overheat the LEDs, even if you write directly to the value. So that's the value, 0 to 99. Keep within that just to keep things safe. Animation mode, we did a lot on that, on, off, for blinking and flashing. Timer on, so there's a mode where if you put this on fade and you set it to 1, it will use a clock system and it will turn the light on, it'll fade it on, keep it on for a period of time, which is set based on the time on and time off period, and then after that time period, it'll turn it off. And you can have a different on time, it could be on longer, and off shorter, however you want, and the clock period goes all the way up to 18 hours. So there's another set of variables on the back which you can also adjust. These are a different set of variables for setting specific things, percentage on, random, fade speed, and so forth. All right, so then the trigger port assignments are when you switch the device typically into switch mode, although it does also work from multifunction decoder mode. And then the trigger timeout, once you trigger it, how long does the light stay on, and the values there. So anyway, that's a lot of power. We did a rough calculation on all of these modes, and there are more than, well, we just calculated off of this chart. There are more than 3 million possible combinations. And if you add in all of these different combinations over here, the number is more than 10 million different configuration settings, combinations between all the ports and the speeds and the behaviors. Have fun with that and enjoy lighting your model train layout.